A very warm welcome to all of our attendees this morning. So this morning we are talking about ladders. What is ladder safety? Where are the regulations? If you want to know where do you find regulations on ladders, please just go to SANS 18885 section 10.7, especially if your ladder is being used in conjunction with a scaffolding. If your ladder is being used as a standalone ladder, such as an A-frame ladder or an extension ladder, then you can go to the General Safety Regulations, section 13A. And this is the legislation regarding all uses of ladders for access to ensure that they are safe, both from a construction point of view. In other words, is the ladder constructed in the correct manner? And then is it set up correctly as well? One of the first things that this regulation states, according to General Safety Regulations 13, is that our ladder itself must be constructed of sound materials. Now, ladders come out in various different types of materials. So you get steel, you get aluminium, you get wooden ladders, and all of these have their individual purposes and where these ladders can be used. But each of these ladders have a different maintenance schedule. You see, you cannot do the same maintenance on an aluminium ladder as you do on a wooden ladder, because obviously the materials are different and they need different maintenance on each of these ladders. So please ensure that the ladder that you are purchasing, you follow the guidelines from the manufacturer. First of all, if you haven't received those guidelines from the manufacturer, you're more than welcome just to drop us a mail. Don't forget, it's safety@iopsa.org. Ask us about the type of ladder that you're using. Perhaps we can assist you with that maintenance schedule. Otherwise, you can also Google the type of ladder that you're using with the words maintenance next to it. And you should be able to find something on the internet that will guide you at least. But obviously for the industry, IOPSA is dedicated to ensure we find the correct information for you. So please just get in touch with us. Now, when it comes to ladders on scaffolding, many just do the scaffolding according to the SANS standard, but they do not take a look at the regulations for ladders as well. So when we are on a construction site, please remember, even though you are getting a contractor out, or perhaps the principal contractor, or even your client is supplying the actual scaffolding for you, the responsibility is still on the user of that scaffold, the same as it would be on the user of the actual ladder. And so if you are using somebody else's ladder, you might think to yourself, well, it's their responsibility to ensure it's safe. That is true. Obviously, the owner of that type of equipment must ensure that it is safe. But for a company that hires out scaffolding, they ensure that it's according to standard or according to code, but they cannot ensure that you have built it or set it up correctly. Now, that is on you because you become the user of that piece of equipment. And in this case, because you are the user of the ladder, first off, you have to ensure that it's according to your SANS standard or SABS standard. So please buy quality ladders. Don't go and buy secondhand ladders if you do not know the maintenance schedules. I do understand it is a cost, and obviously you've got to weigh up the pros and cons of purchasing ladders. And we do understand that it is a business decision that you do need to make. And so we appeal to all the employees who are using ladders on behalf of your company. Please ensure that you do not damage the ladder. It is an expensive piece of equipment. And so the correct maintenance, the correct setup, and the correct use of ladders is important, not just for your safety, but also for the life of that ladder as well. Now, how do we actually go about setting up a ladder correctly? Well, the very first thing we want to do is ensure the 1:4 ratio for every ladder. Now, the 1:4 ratio is for every 4 meters you are going up, you must take the ladder 1 meter away from where you are setting it up. So in this case, in this picture, very simply, if we are going 4 meters up to access a roof, we will just pull that ladder 1 meter away from where the topmost part of the ladder will rest. And that will give us approximately a 75.5 degree setup angle. And that is the correct angle for a person to be able to climb up the ladder with both hands holding the ladder and both feet firmly placed on the ladder while ascending or descending that ladder. But we also want to ensure 3 points of contact. And so if you look in this picture, hopefully you're not driving, and if you are, please don't look at the picture for too long. But the picture, the description of this is basically a person climbing up a ladder with both hands being utilized to be able to climb. You'll notice that he's not carrying any tools or equipment in his hand while climbing up. He has a tool belt. His tools are in his tool belt. He's got his correct PPE on, and he is not using his hands for any other purpose other than actually climbing that ladder. Now, what is the 3 point of contact rule? Well, when you hold a ladder with both hands and you are climbing, you generally lift one foot off of the ladder in order to step up. However, you've still got both hands and your other foot connected to that ladder, and that creates 3 points of contact. And once you lift your hand off to move up higher, you then have one hand and 2 feet on that ladder. So you might think, well, is that really the case? Well, next time you climb a ladder, you'll see that's exactly how we normally climb if you do not have items in your hand. And so to ensure you have 3 points of contact, you must ensure that you are not carrying tools and equipment in your hand. So for those employees who do have tools and equipment to pull up to another level in order to use these tools up on the roof or perhaps inside a ceiling, just ensure that you've got the correct tool belt. And if you do not have a tool belt, you can use a bucket attached to a piece of rope. You go up first holding the rope, obviously not in your hand, but you can put it around your waist in order to walk up with it, just pulling up the rope. And then once you are at the top, you can pull the rope with the bucket to the higher level. Also, just a word of caution for many that have done this. We see it being done on many construction sites, and it is one of the ways that it is safe to pull tools or equipment up to a top level. However, if that bucket is too heavy, then you cannot just have one person pulling on the bucket. We also want to ensure that while doing this, the person has the appropriate attachment points when they are climbing into a higher level or an elevated working platform. And so on a ladder, as you see here, if you are climbing up and down on the roof, this person doesn't need to use a safety harness. And so it's not a legal requirement to use a safety belt or a safety harness rather with a double leg lanyard while working on a ladder. However, if that ladder is being used to access a roof where there is no fall protection, then you must have either fall arrest systems or fall prevention systems in place. And so many plumbers were saying to us, well, we're getting confused on some sites. Why does this site say I have to have a safety harness when working on my ladder, but when I get to another site, they don't require it working on a ladder? So if you are standing on the ladder, you are working from the actual ladder, then that becomes your base. Because you are not working at heights past the ladder, there is no legal requirement in terms of General Safety Regulation 13 that says you must use a safety harness. But on some sites, you are using the ladder to access a higher point, perhaps getting onto a roof or inside a ceiling where there is a possibility of an edge or where there is a possibility of a fall to a lower level. Well, then you are required to have some sort of fall prevention, fall protection, or fall arrest system. Now, you can do that in many different ways. If you think about it logically, climbing up a ladder into a scaffold, even if you go 6 meters up into a scaffold, you're technically working at heights, but you don't need a fall arrest system like a harness because you already have a fall prevention system, such as guardrails and handrails around your scaffolding. And so while you are inside a scaffold, you cannot fall out of that scaffold. However, if you remove one of those ledges in order to perhaps plaster a wall, well, now there is a fall edge. There is a possibility that you could fall from that edge. Then the requirement is that you have some sort of fall arrest system because your fall prevention system is no longer there. If you are accessing a roof that has a parapet wall all around, well, the parapet wall becomes the fall prevention, and thus you do not need a safety harness. So don't just take it as a blanket rule. I don't need a harness when working on a ladder. That's not the case. We need to be site specific and also scope specific with our requirements. Now, please also remember when climbing up or down a ladder, so when you are ascending the ladder to go up or descending the ladder to come back down, you are only allowed to have one person use that ladder at any given time. Ladders are designed as a one-man working device, and it only has sufficient strength to support one person with your tools at a time. So you will notice on the ladder, it does have a safe working load as well as the correct setup for that actual ladder. So if you forget, just take a look at the sticker on your ladder and it will tell you how to set it up and how many kilograms is allowed on that ladder at any given time. Now we noticed again, and this is a huge reminder for many of us out in the industry on how to use the correct ladder for the type of job that we are performing. And again, you can see this picture of somebody climbing onto a roof. This is extremely dangerous because you will notice that he didn't have 3 points of contact. First of all, he's now standing on the topmost step of the actual ladder, which is not allowed. In fact, most ladders have a sticker to tell you that you cannot pass this this height of the actual ladder, not with your body, but more with your feet, because every ladder must have at least 900 millimeters past your feet in order for you to be able to hold onto with your hands. That gives you your 3 points of contact. So if you take a look at the first picture on the center bottom, you will notice that the person is, first of all, climbing onto a roof without a safety harness. And so he is not attached to an anchor point. He's not working only from the ladder. And because he is accessing a higher point or a higher elevated working platform, he has to have other means of fall prevention, fall protection, or fall arrest systems in place. So this ladder is not adequate as an access ladder. So an A-frame ladder is generally set up in order to give you adequate bottom support while somebody's holding it, that you can stand on the ladder and work from the ladder. It's not generally designed or not generally used, should we say, in the construction industry as something to access one point to another. So when we see this type of ladder being used, we generally stop the work and request a proper ladder be set up. And how is a proper ladder being set up? Well, if you take a look on the picture on the right-hand side, you will notice, first of all, your 1:4 ratio, or your 75 degrees. Then you have adequate bottom support, so the support at the bottom. Then you have support at the top with the ladder extending past the platform. The reason why that extension is there, so that when you put your foot down onto that elevated working platform, whether it be a roof or another platform in order to work from, you are still able to hold the ladder with both hands, giving you stability to climb off the ladder onto the platform, or when climbing off the platform onto the ladder, you are able to hold the ladder first with your hands and then put your feet on. Well, if you think of the first picture that we mentioned, here the person is standing on the top step, climbing onto the roof. You might ask yourself, how is he going to get back down? Now, maybe you've experienced this before, or maybe you've seen it being done before, where the person is hanging off the roof, searching for the ladder with their 1 foot, and you'll notice the ladder teetering because of the weight now is too high. So the center of gravity is now moved past the correct balance of the ladder, and it is very easy for that ladder to come toppling over. And so this is where a lot of mistakes are happening. In fact, this is where the increase in fall from heights related injuries and accidents are continually happening on our sites. But you might say to yourself, this doesn't happen all the time. I mean, if you look at this picture, this is not happening on our construction sites all the time. We do well, and many of you health and safety professionals that are listening in say, well, we stop this type of work automatically. But you'll notice in this picture, this person is not on a construction site. This person is at a private home. And so we are begging you as IOPSA as well as OHSS, please, to all of those in the industry, take safety seriously when going to private homes as well. We really appreciate and want to extend a huge thank you to all of you for applying the correct method as well as the correct setup of your ladders and using that ladder on construction sites. But let us not neglect the fact that we still need to take it seriously, as well as have the exact same setup and same safety protocols when we get to a private home and access a private roof or a ceiling on a private dwelling. So please, anytime you use a ladder, it's not specifically designed for construction sites. It's designed for the scope of work you're performing, regardless of where you are. That legislation still is applicable to you. So please ensure when climbing a ladder, do not have a ladder that is too short. The ladder must extend past or through the opening of any entrance, whether it be a ceiling or the roof, to allow enough overhang, at least 900 millimeters, in order for you to have a safe landing on top of, inside of, moving from the ladder to the access point or from the access point to the actual ladder. So when working on a ladder, please make sure it is stable. It has stable footing. It has proper top support. The ladder is also set up correctly so that you're not too close to the ladder, where your weight of your body is pulling away from the ladder. And also you don't want to have it set up at too much of a degree, like 40 degrees, because then you won't be able to lift your body weight off the actual ladder, and you're no longer using your legs. You will now use your arms to climb, and that can also become very dangerous. And so this correct setup of a ladder maybe takes a little bit of practice. You're probably getting used to it now, and it's not exact. You don't take a measuring tape and measure 4 meters and 1 meter away. A very simple rule of thumb that we've done on many sites is if you put your steel toe boots against the foot support of the actual ladder and extend your arms out, you should almost be able to touch one of the stiles. That's the bracing that goes across the ladder. You should be able to hold one of those. That will give you a general idea of if the ladder is set up correctly. And so there's many ways of doing it without being exact, 1 to 4. But even if it's 1.1 to 4, you should still be able to have a reasonably safe setup. Then please ensure that the way the ladder is set up is designed to ensure that no tools or equipment can fall off that ladder. So ask yourself 2 questions. Is the right ladder for the work that I'm performing? Is it not just the correct ladder, but is it also correctly set up? And then secondly, has it been inspected, and is it safe for me to use? Now, again, the different ladders mean different maintenance schedules. Different maintenance schedules mean different times that your ladders might need to be inspected. But every single ladder must be inspected before I use it. So as soon as I'm about to use that ladder and set it up, I'm remembering everything, how to set it up, ensuring top support, ensuring foot support. And if you don't have a proper foot support, you can have an employee standing down there holding the ladder for you. It is a recommendation from some sites to have an additional person hold that ladder. Please, just again, another note or a word of caution, that person that is holding the ladder at the bottom must not be distracted. You cannot be using your cell phone or filling out forms while holding the ladder. If you are there to hold the ladder, then your task is holding the actual ladder in order to be a stability or support for the person climbing up or climbing down that ladder. So please ensure that that person, if it is you, you are taking it seriously. And if it is not you and you see it's somebody else, just give them a word of encouragement to remind them of the responsibility of holding that ladder correctly. But when we do our inspections, what are we actually looking for? Well, we want to check all the rungs, the cleats or steps, and ensure that they are in good working condition. Remember, if you are working in and around a construction site or even private homes, the bottom of your shoes constantly pick up grease, constantly pick up dirt or oils, especially for us plumbers being out in the trenches. You can pick up a lot of biological agents sometimes, and then you need to climb up a ladder and climb back down. And so the bottom of your feet are on those steps. The same time as when your hands climb up and down. And so you're constantly touching whatever is at the bottom of your shoes. And then those same hands are then touching other items, our tools, our equipment, in order to perform the works. So just remember that what is under your shoe is eventually going to be on your hands or your gloves if you are wearing them when you're climbing up and down a ladder. So make sure those rungs or cleats are in very good condition. Make sure the steps are clean. Doesn't mean you have to clean it every 5 minutes, but if you are walking into a pretty dirty area, specifically being a plumber when working in trenches, especially with biological hazards such as feces or bile or things like that, that you're walking in, just remember that is eventually going to land up on your ladder if you're going to climb it and not clean it before you do. Then the side rails, are they intact? Do they have any cracks, bends, or breaks? What is this telling us? It means we've got to physically take our ladder. We've got to physically run through the entire ladder from bottom to top, looking at all the rungs, all the cleats, all the steps. We've got to look at the entire side rail from top to bottom and ensure that there are no cracks, bends, breaks, or any imperfections either in the wood or the other material that your ladder is made from. Then do the rungs, these steps that go on the side rails, do they fit in snug? Are they tight? Try and feel them to see if they can move around. If they are loose or you can see that they need a bit of maintenance, do not use that ladder. You need to use a safe ladder. Remember, because you are accessing a high area with a ladder, there is a very big possibility that you could fall if the ladder is not safe. And a fall from height is definitely one of the highest rated causes of accidents. In fact, the causes of death on construction sites is falling from height. So please ensure that we take this seriously. Is the ladder free from corrosion? Whether it be a steel ladder, aluminium ladder, or even a wooden ladder, they all corrode in different methods. So please check if there are any corrosion spots. Are the side rails and steps free from oil and grease, as we mentioned? Whatever's under your feet is eventually going to be on your ladder. Are the ladder's hardware and fittings secure and undamaged? Do movable parts operate freely? For an A-frame ladder, you should have a lock mechanism between the two A-frame parts of the actual ladder. There's a little center locking mechanism that should come down. That should move freely. It shouldn't bind or have excessive play. If you have an extension ladder with ropes, are the ropes fraying? Do they have too much wear, or are they safe to use? Then any ladder that is damaged must be removed from service and it must be marked do not use. In fact, ladders generally have serial numbers. They should have that serial number on a ladder, especially if it is a SANS approved ladder, and they must be placed on a register and checked every single time before we use that piece of equipment. So let us recap a little bit about ladders. Please ensure that you have a minimum of 900 to 1 meter above the surface that you are trying to access. Ensure that the ladder is set up at your 75-degree angle or 1:4 ratio. Make sure that you have a secure top support wherever your ladder is going to be supported on. Then check that the ladder is in good condition and strong enough. Make sure that the ladder has non-slip feet, as well as that there is enough room to safely step on and off the ladder, either at the bottom or the top. And then make sure the base of the ladder is level as well as secure to prevent the ladder from falling out. Then also you'll notice in this picture something that is not mentioned, something that generally when we do training, we request people to put up their hand and answer if there's a question that they might have based on this picture, and many have got it correct. You will notice that this person is working near an entrance, so a door leading in and out of the building, and he also has a cone to show that there is danger either inside or outside of that building. And so this is a very good thing to do, especially for those who are working in and around us. Remember, we must have signage or barricading to show that it is a danger area while we are working at heights. And this is to prevent us from dropping things or from somebody knocking the ladder and potentially having us fall off. So thank you very much for joining us